So today is a special day.
Today it's October 11. 3 years ago, I had a hearing with Janine Small in the European Parliament. I was a member of the special COVID committee in the European Parliament and also the coordinator on behalf of the ECR, the Conservatives in the European Parliament. And we had a hearing with the executive of Pfizer. Her name is Janine Small. We wanted to have Albert Bourla in the European Parliament because there was a huge issue that's still not solved about the text messages between Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, and the CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla. And they exchanged messages about the purchase of the COVID vaccines. And this contract, we do not know exactly because we don't have any insights about the contracts, but it's about 35 to 40 billion euros. It's a huge amount of money. But Mr. Bourla didn't show up, and he sent his executive, Mrs. Janine Small. So we had a hearing, and I was talking about transparency in Dutch, and because there's no transparency in the contracts, and well, as a matter of fact, they used our taxpayers' money to buy these COVID vaccines. So the people in the European Union have the right to know how much money was spent, what did they bought, and how many of these vaccines, etc., etc. But no, there was no single transparency. But Albert Bourla, he had not the guts to come to the parliament and to answer our questions. So he sent Janine Small, this executive woman, and I asked her the question, was the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission before it entered the market? Because I wanted to know, all over the world, people were forced to take the vaccine.
Yes.
Because you had to do it to protect others.
Right. The same narrative.
Everywhere.
Right.
Except in Sweden, because they have a different system over there. But it was everywhere the same. But it was a false narrative, because she admitted to me that they didn't have the time to do that.
Yes.
So the vaccines, they are not vaccines, but let's say the COVID shots were not even tested on stopping the transmission. And still, our government told us, you have to take the vaccine to protect your grandparents, your grandmother, and to protect others. You do it for all of society. But it was not even tested, so that was a huge lie. So if you didn't took the vaccine, you didn't receive this COVID passport. I didn't took the vaccine. I didn't wanted it. But I was excluded from the normal things in life, from all kinds of things that are normal in our society. Go to a restaurant, go to a bar, go to the gym, etc. I was not even allowed to enter the European Parliament. I was an elected representative of the people, and I was not allowed to enter the European Parliament because I didn't took the vaccine. I had to test every day. I sued the European Parliament for that. But it was all based on a lie, because it was never tested on stopping the transmission. So why did our governments tell us that we had to take the shots? And this is today exactly 3 years ago. And it was a huge moment, because this video that was shared millions and millions of time on the social media, on X, on TikTok, on YouTube, everywhere. It was in all kinds of alternative media. And 2 weeks after that video, everything was done. They couldn't keep up the narrative anymore. So not only COVID was done, but even they tried to bring in monkeypox. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
We had monkeypox, but even monkeypox was done. So that was a huge moment, and I got accused by all by the Associated Press, by Reuters, by all these big media outlets, that I was spreading disinformation. Yeah, because Pfizer never said that these shots were going to stop the transmission. So they completely switched the narrative. I was the liar, not them, which is crazy, of course, because they really told us even President Biden said, if you take the shot, you're at dead end for the virus. Dr. Fauci said it, but also Albert Bourla said it many, many times. There are still screenshots on social media that he said, even you have to vaccinate your children to protect your grandmother. So yeah, for me it was a big success. Even they called me a liar, but I'm still proud of that.
Truth is coming out. The real information about the vaccination and the side effects are actually coming out.
Yes.
Don't you know Robert Kennedy Jr. in person?
If you ask him, do you know Rob Rose? I don't think he knows me, but we had conversations during COVID online because I was learning from him. He started the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. Now in Europe we started Make Europe Healthy Again.
Okay.
So we started that too. We have the launch within 4 days from now.
So you learned from him. What was going on at that time?
Yeah, because I had an online meeting with him, and he told me that in Africa there are countries where the people take once a week medicines against the parasites, and that is high CQ, but also ivermectin. Ivermectin. Sorry, yeah, I always ivermectin. So, and in a lot of these African countries, they didn't took the shot, but they didn't have any problems with COVID because of that. But ivermectin was, it was absolutely forbidden because it says it's a horse dewormer. That's also a huge lie because it is a medicine that received the Nobel Prize for something, and it was huge for a long time on human beings, and still in Africa they use it, but it's so cheap, you cannot make money of it. So I probably think it was forbidden for that reason, because the vaccines were approved on a temporary basis because there was no alternative. So that's why they brought in this other lie that it was a horse dewormer and it would kill people, etc., which is apparently not true. And so that I thought, this is strange, why are we not using this over here? But it was very difficult to start that discussion because I'm not a medical doctor, I'm an electrical engineer. So for me it was very difficult to speak about medical issues. I was fighting for the fundamental rights of people.
It's a common sense,
yes,
actually.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
and as an electrical engineer, I can read data.
Yes.
It's very good because it's all based on my study was based on physics and mathematics. But I tried to stay away from the medical parts of it. But I was fighting for the human rights. But so we had contact with, let's say, with all the freedom fighters across the globe. But it was a very difficult time because if you didn't agree with the accepted narrative, they called you an anti-vax. Well, as a matter of fact, they called me already a climate denier and xenophobe, and so that was another label they put on my head. But I don't really care. But it was very difficult to reach out to the majority of the people because we only could use the alternative media, let's say the independent media.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who is behind it?
Yeah, that's a good question. What we saw at the time, that all these restrictions that were implemented were implemented at the same time everywhere.
Yes.
So the mask mandates, the lockdowns, that we even got locked up in our own homes, but also the coercion on taking the shots. Except Sweden, that was a different story because there the health department is disconnected from the government, so they really had their own policy in this. But for the rest, it was everywhere the same. So apparently there was on a global level, above all these nation states, something that created these policies. I have no idea who is behind it. Maybe it's the UN, maybe it's Davos. I have no idea because they wanted to have this built back better thing, you know. They
Build a
was to abuse the COVID situation to change our societies. I think that didn't work because they really released a lion, because we as freedom fighters, or fighters for freedom, maybe that's a better word, we were connecting all over the world, the United States, Europe, even Asia, everywhere. And so we came together to fight this anti-freedom and build back better ideas. But but as a matter of fact, we now see exactly the same with the freedom of speech. It is in the West, it's under pressure everywhere. And it looks like they have the same mechanism. But I have no idea who is behind this. I have no idea. A global thing, you know. Christians all over the world are under attack.
Yes.
Everywhere. If you, and no one talks about that. They are really upset about the Palestinian situation in Gaza. Mm-hmm. It's a terrible situation. Mm-hmm. I admit that. Mm-hmm. But it is not as bad as all the Christians that are really being murdered in Africa and in the Middle East. And so also here in Europe, not in the US anymore, they tried, but now with the election of President Trump, things have changed for the better in the United States. But here also in Europe, Christianity is under pressure because it is something that unites people, and they want to divide us. They want to have people going on their own, trying to destroy communities. And let's say family is a very strong community. They try to destroy that, but let's say the Christian church is also a very strong community. So that's why that is under attack, because this is what communists also did. Yes. The first thing what communists did when they took over is destroying the church communities. If you divide people on everything, these tyrants can stay in power, because we are arguing about, you know, I give you an example. When I had this hearing with this lady from Pfizer, my social media exploded, and I received so many followers on X. It was
just like my channel.
Yes, so it went crazy. But then we had the problem with Gaza. I'm very pro-Israel. Mm-hmm. I want to have the Palestinian people a good life. That's not the problem. But if you shoot missiles for years and years after each other on Israel, and then you have this horrible killing on October 7, 2023, for me it is, they crossed the line and Israel hit back. This is what Hamas wanted to happen, and it happened. If you start a war, don't complain if you're going to lose it. So that was my opinion, but I lost a lot of followers that really appreciated me for doing the things with COVID, but because of my stand with Israel, I lost a lot of followers, you know. This is how, and then the same on Ukraine. I'm pro-peace, I'm not pro-war.
Right.
And I of course, I really condemn what Putin has done, getting into Ukraine, but there is also another side of the story, and I try to to make that clear too. You know, it's not that the West are the good guys and the Russians are the bad guys. It is a Hollywood movie. Putin is a bad guy. What he did was terrible, but there are bad guys on our side too. And the moment I tried to say that, I lost a lot of people in my on my social media. So this is how they divide everyone with all these crises, and yeah. So as long as we are divided and not united,
right,
these evil people stay in power. And well, what happened in South Korea with the churches, I really believe that's the same, because the Christianity and the churches are a very strong community. Yes. So you have to break that up to get to stay in power, or to get the power.
And I believe there has been lots of smear campaign against you.
Yes.
to divide your followers and scatter your followers, so that you cannot have more influence over the globalists or whoever that wants to dictate the people.
Yeah, I always say, when your voice held no power, they wouldn't try to silence you.
Right.
So the fact that they try to silence me means they are afraid of me. So I'm doing a good job.
Yes, I believe so. So I think we have a similar situation in Netherlands and South Korea, especially when we have fake conservatives and fake patriots. The people who act they are trying to help the nation or people, but behind it they are also compromised by the globalists and following their agenda.
Yeah, I call them
secretly
career politicians.
A career.
That's
career
what I call them. Yeah,
politicians,
career
yes,
politicians.
yes,
They are
yes,
not.
most of them.
They are not there to serve the people. I really believe they come in with good intentions, but once they are elected, they forget the people, and they want to stay in that position. A lot of people, what I have seen, I don't know the situation in South Korea, but in the European Parliament, I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own businesses. I didn't need the salary of the European Parliament. I did to be honest, when I went into politics, you get a good salary, but as an entrepreneur, I made more money than I did in the European Parliament. But for the most people in the European Parliament, it was a lot of money because they never worked for their own risk and their own money. They not even worked in private companies. They
were not independent.
They were not independent, but
in some way.
But they were also not able to make a decent amount of money in the private sector. So once they are in the European Parliament, they have a good salary, and they want to stay there, and they do whatever they need to stay there. It's like snakes in the grass. You don't see them, and they go from one mandate to another. I was putting my head above the grass.
And what happened when you do that?
They chop off your head. That's really what happened. No, I was really outspoken, but in an honest way. I never was rude or something like that, but it was just
genuine,
and also not. I didn't attack the people. I attacked their policy. And but still, within my own party, they said, "Rob, you should not speak about this. You should not speak about that," because also climate. We have this climate problem, and it costs hundreds, thousands of billions, and there is no measurable result. So what are we doing? I'm an electrical engineer. I was in energy for 32 years. I really know what I'm talking about. This energy transition is a huge problem for Europe because we are losing our competitiveness. But they said, no, you should not speak about that because then you are a climate denier, and our party is not a climate denier. But also, I was not able. They said you should not speak about COVID. There is no political advantage to speak about COVID.
See, yeah, that's a problem. Political advantage.
That's really, I said, political advantage. This is not about political advantage.
Right.
This is about the fundamental rights of the people. They choose me to represent them, and I will, whatever it takes. They kicked me out of the party. That was my reward for being honest, for being genuine. And but I don't care, I stay with my principles. For me, that's more important than I lie to myself to be accepted by people I don't really like because they are not genuine. But it's difficult because most we had in the European Parliament at the time I was serving after Brexit, we had 705 seats in the European Parliament. 705. We were with 7 people. So that's only 1% fighting for the real freedom.
Wow.
Happened.
So you're Christian, right?
Yes.
So I see many Christians who try to speak the truth, and as a Christian myself, I understand why true believers are trying to do the right thing and only try to speak the truth. But could you explain how Christianity is working in this battle? How the Christian belief is becoming a backbone of this fight within our allies?
Let's say the center part of Europe, Romania and Greece and even Russia, etc. The south is very Catholic, and Germany and the Netherlands we have a lot of Protestants. But I always say it doesn't matter, it's
as long as you believe in Jesus.
Yes. For the most people, it's not really something that they choose by themselves. It's just how they were born and raised by their parents. But it's really something that unites us, and it's about honesty and respect for other people, and that's very strong. If you have true faith,
right,
then it's so strong. It's very difficult to destroy that. So only if you divide people, put them up against each other with all kinds of other things, you can break that unity.
Why do you do this? Why do you risk your career and your life?
Well, for me, it's a simple answer. It's just, I do it for my kids, for my children and my grandchildren. I don't have grandchildren yet, but I hope to have them in the near future. And I want them to live in the same freedom as I was born and raised. And I know freedom is something that is really special, and it's something that fits in the Western culture, no matter if it's in South Korea or in Australia or Canada or in South America. It's, let's say, the Western culture. And freedom is something very special, and you have to defend that. The price for freedom has always been very high, and it will always be very high. But I'm in the lucky circumstances that I sold my companies that make me independent. I don't need money from the European Parliament. I don't need money from a salary or so. The only thing what could happen is that I can lose clients. But it is what it is, I'm not for sale. I really want to make everyone's lives better, not only lives of conservatives, not only lives of Christian people. I want to serve all the people. Even I hope that if I can serve also left-wing people, that they see we are not that evil. I really believe that we as conservatives will make everyone's lives better, because we believe in free markets, in capitalism, in the freedom of speech, and that benefits everyone. That's the only thing that gives freedom. If you depend on the state, you're a kind of prisoner. But the state should be as small as possible, and civilians should have as much freedom as possible. Because when you have freedom, there will be innovation, and if you have innovation, you have economic growth. All kinds of small businesses start up, they make money, and they do trade, etc. And the moment the state centralizes power and you bring all this regulation in, like the European Union is doing right now with all the bureaucracy, then small businesses start to suffer. And that is how they destroyed, during COVID, a lot of small businesses. And so this is why I do it. It's really for my children, but also for their generation. We have to fight for that. A lot of people died during all the wars we fought to fight for freedom. So it should not be for nothing. Our ancestors fought for this. They died for this, and we have to maintain that. If you have a car, you can skip your maintenance one time. Maybe you can do it 2 times. But if you do it for the 3rd time, your car will break. It's the same with democracy. You have to maintain it, and you have to keep fighting for it. I keep on fighting in my own way. I just started a foundation in the Netherlands. We have a very complicated situation in the Netherlands. In my opinion, we have too many political parties. Maybe I can explain. We are a tiny country. But we don't have a threshold in our political system. So it's very easy to start a new party, and you need maybe 40,000, 50,000 seats, votes to have one seat in our national parliament. The problem is that we have a party for the animals, we have a party for the elderly people, we have a party for the migrants, we have a party for the farmers, we have a party for the entrepreneurs, we have a party for. I always say we need a party for the people. This is what we really need. We are even there. We are divided in all kinds of stupid things. We need a party for the people, and maybe you can have Christian Democrats, you can have Social Democrats, and maybe liberals, and maybe conservatives. That's something. And well, I'm not very in favor of the liberals and the socialists, etc. But well, people. This is democracy. People have different angles to approach our societies, and that's good. But as long as we have real debates, but that's not happening. What I'm now doing, I was not able to join a political party. I'm starting now a foundation in the Netherlands. Try to get this grassroots movement to get the right people together, intellectuals, captains of industry, entrepreneurs, people that just work in hospitals, etc., doctors, that bringing back people, freedom-loving people with common sense, and from there, let's see if we can change our political system. So I start not at the top, I start from bottom up. This is what I'm doing right now.
Which is called grassroots
movement. Yes. We are not a democracy anymore, we are a bureaucracy. And that is because in Europe we have 27 member states in the European Union. European Union is not the EU. The EU is just a project, but the EU is a very important project. We have 27 member states, but above that we have another government, and that's called the European Commission. So we have a government above our government, but the European Commission is an unelected body. Bureaucrats, they are civil servants, and they are only there to serve themselves. They will not go away. They are not elected.
Should it be gone? European Commission? Should
Yes,
it be eliminated?
yes. What I was advocating during my time in the European Parliament, I was trying to make my own position impossible by getting. We should get rid of the European Parliament as it is now, with separate elections. The European Commission should be a secretariat. A secretariat, that's all. And the members of the European Parliament should be delegations from our national parliament, coming once in a month together in Strasbourg and make a decision about the things, but very small and efficient, not like this. Right. And then we have the European Council. This is the representatives of the member states. They are in charge, and it's not serving the people anymore. They switched it. The people in let's say in the 27 member states of the European Union are working for the European Union. They ask more and more tax. They want this war with Ukraine. They are really not trying to stop the war. They need this war to keep this Ponzi scheme going on. We go from crisis to crisis, and it's all about hiding the problems they created themselves. So, in my opinion, the European Union, as it is now, it should be abolished. It should collapse under its own weight, or we as conservatives must win more and more elections so that, let's say, we have more prime ministers in the European Council, so they can change the course of the European Commission. It's very complicated. If I try to explain how the European Union works in the United States, but even people in my own country, they have no clue. It is so complicated. Yeah, it's really complicated, and they create more and more laws. And the real problem is that EU law supersedes national law. So once it is adopted in Brussels, it counts for all the member states.
Wow!
And you cannot get rid of it, because then you have to go to the European Commission. Can you please change this law? And if they don't want to do it, so they step by step they gain more power. During COVID, for example, health was a national competence that was with the member states, but then they abused this COVID crisis to get
dictate.
yes, and also to bring health issues as a competence of the bureaucrats in Brussels. Now with the Ukraine war, they do exactly the same because defense industry is a national competence. But because of this war, now we have to do it together, and they take more and more power. And also tax is a national competence, but they say no, we have to finance this war. We need to create a war economy. So they bring all this power to Brussels again. And yeah, I'm going to say it. I think that's important. You know, during the Second World War, Germany, we had this fascism. Fascism is like communism. It's everything is centralized power. The only difference with communism is that under communism, everything is state-owned. Fascism is state-controlled. Private companies, state-controlled. Isn't that what we are doing now with the European Union? They want this war economy, but Brussels decide. The companies in Europe can make money, but Brussels decide. In my opinion, and it's also with the war economy. And this is exactly what happened in the Second World War with Europe. And in my opinion, that's a very dangerous development, especially because we cannot vote them out. They are the bureaucrats, they are there forever. So I hope the European Union will collapse under its own weight, or that we win more and more elections in the member state, and that we, but the thing is, for example, the Conservatives, they won in Austria, they won in France, they won in many member states, but they create what I called Frankenstein coalitions to keep the Conservatives out. Poland exactly the same.
What is Frankenstein coalition?
It is it's an ugly beast that they created. I give the example of Poland because we have this Law and Justice Party won the election, so they were the biggest, but they were kept out by all the others out of the government. So they could not form a government because they were not able to create a majority. And then the left came in, and they needed so many parties that they created a majority, and that's what I call a Frankenstein coalition, because it's an ugly thing, you know. It's not working because they are really divided. The only thing they have in common is to keep the Conservatives out. That happened in Poland, that happened in Austria, that happened in France. As a matter of fact, it happened also in the Netherlands, because Geert Wilders, he won the elections, but he was not allowed to become our prime minister. And if we cannot deliver the prime minister, he is not sitting in the European Council. And now we have 27 member states in the European Council, 27 heads of states. 2/3 is liberal socialist, and 1/3 is conservative. It's not enough, so we cannot change it. And they do whatever they need to keep the majority of conservatives out. So that's why I call it Frankenstein coalitions. It's an ugly beast they create to stay in power. If you look at France, it's really a mess, but also in Poland it's really a mess. It is. These countries are not governed anymore. It's not working, but still, the only thing they have in common is to keep the conservatives out. Yeah, it's not good.